Love this project. You, I've been working on it all afternoon. I can't wait to show it to you. It's it is sort of we could call it accounts payable light. There's a module in Sun Systems that handles accounts payable. If you're a big organization, you want checks to automatic print out of the system and so forth. Uh, uh, you probably ought to be learning to do accounts payable. This would be for small organizations that right now, most of our organizations, what's happening is when the invoices come in, you just pile them all up. You're not putting them in system. They're not in accounts payable, and your financial statements are basically wrong because they don't have your payables. And now in most cases, it's not the end of the world, but you don't know when your case is going to become the problem case. That is, if you're paying your bills really regularly and they're not building up and paying every month, it might not be the end of the world that they're not shown on your financial statements, the payables for your electric bill and everything else. But you never know when you're going to get a little bit behind, and all of a sudden your financial statements become something that is basically dishonest because you don't have your payables on there. And maybe during the time that you're the controller and the CFO, there's not a problem, but there's always going to be some new person in town, and maybe they get behind, and so it really is best for your organization to record as payables. It really is good. I mean, there's lots of values to recording your payables, to try to capture double payments, try to bring them under control in case they get lost, to get some sort of history of the payments going on. And so what we're going to look at today is a sort of a easy way to do payables on a casual basis. Usually what happens is you just pile them up, and then you record them as you're paying them. So you're preparing checks, let's say, on a typewriter, and then you open up Sun Systems and you record the checks, crediting the cash account and then debiting the expense connected to the payment. Well, what I'm going to suggest is that you set them up as a payable, and this is the way. Don't worry, this is not going to be much harder than what you're already doing. All right, so already you're spending time, and a lot of the work of the entry is getting the debit into the expense, right? Fund, function, restriction, resource, all that type of thing. Well, now you're going to do the exact same thing, but instead of crediting cash, when you get the invoice, you immediately record it, debiting the expense, which is what you're already doing, but instead of crediting cash, you credit the payable account. You set up a payable account, and you can the C account, C electric company, and you've got them there. Now, why people don't like doing that is they say, oh, but when I record the checks, I've got to go in there and record the entry. Well, that's what we're bypassing with this little process here. So we're going to have a spreadsheet that we're going to look at, and we're going to run it. It's going to be a payment run. Now, this thing that I'm showing you today is going to be fairly simple, but you can make it as elaborate as you want. In fact, if you're making payments via a spreadsheet that you import up to the bank, combine the idea that you've already got to import it up to the bank, and let's think about that while you're looking at today's presentation. Speaking of today's presentation, even if you don't want to do exactly the payable example I'm doing here, watch the video with the idea of how can you use the methodology. That is, think bigger than just the mechanics of the payable system. Think, how can I use some of the techniques that Mac used in this sheet in some other situation. And so it's more than just, copying this payable thing and making it work. are deciding I don't want to bother with that. It's also, there's a lot of neat tricks that you could probably find useful in something that is important to you. And so there's about 5 or 6 different topics of things we're using. I think probably everything is sort of new but pulled together in a really interesting way. So let's get started. I am excited. You're going to like this project. I've feeling pretty good about this, and so what I thought I would do is just with you watching build the automation process, which will include stumbling around. I haven't pre-cooked it or figured it out, but I think that we could have a good time just figuring this out together. Now, we basically have 2 or 3 steps that we want to go through. We want to run a summary report. Then we want to manually, this is not automated, put in pay and the amount, and then we want to run an import. So the summary report, to remind you, okay, and to remind you how this works, is that we have a summary report, this named Summary Report 1, that is producing this summary report of all of my C accounts and their balance. And then we're doing a data send, okay, just to remind you of that, okay. We're doing a data send, and we're running a definition, okay. We're running a data send that was this definition here that we just built, okay. And so we want, after we have brought in the balances here through the summary report, and then we did this manual process right here, then we want to have another button that will do the data send. So one button to do the summary report, then we do the manual process, and then a second button that will do the data send. And then I'm going to, for educational purposes, make a third button that will clean everything up, ready for another payment run. Well, probably you don't really need it. If you had, if you don't save it, your data send, if you don't save your worksheet at any time, it will open clean and empty, and so when you do the summary report, all of this will be empty. But there is a possibility that you want to do a payment run for South Trust Bank and then turn right around and do a payment run for another bank. And also what we don't want is any of this remnants to be here in the second payment run. We don't want any remnants from the first payment run going over. So the third little thing I'm going to automate is a cleanup that will bring all of this to 0, all of the right amounts to 0, not just everything here to 0, because some of the stuff we want to be very careful that we keep. And so it will sort of clean out these, the summary report. It will clean out all these descriptions. So our project right now is to make 3 buttons. One button that does the summary report, a second button that does the data send, and then a third button that cleans it all up. What might be fun is if we come through, I want to be careful here a little bit. I don't want to get too carried away. I want to clear my contents of this. My summary report's right there, so I don't want to delete that, but we're going to be fine. And the pay is cleared. We want this to be out of the way for us, and then amount is different. That's where we would enter that, and we'd clear the contents there. But we want this to stay, and we want those formulas to stay, and then the check number, the date, the transaction reference, that's all manually input, and so we'll clear those contents. And so let's go ahead and get started. The very first button we're going to build right here is a button that runs that summary report for us. It's very simple, extremely simple. Now remember, on the very first time, you only have to do this one time, and if it looks like I'm doing it more than one time, it's because I'm actually using a different setup than the last video I made. But we need to go over, the very first time you do this, you need to go over to the Trust Center settings, and go to macro settings and check that baby right there, trust access to VBA. Okay, you can't do what we're about to do if that is unchecked. And we go okay. All right, okay. All right, and so now we go over here, utilities, macro builder, and we are going to hunt for let's name this one is list payables. Okay, and so list payables is what that's going to be. And I have an inkling that this has to be one little word, so we'll make it list underscore payables to trick it into thinking that it's just one word. And then description, and we run right down here, and we run summary report. Okay, and we click that like that, and the range is where do we want that summary report to be thrown, and that's A13. And the summary report right here, it shows, do you want to use the internal summary report? We sure do. Summary report 1. Remember me showing you that's what that one was? And so we go okay, and we go like that, and so we have a list of payables, and let's see if it works. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so there we go. All right, so it wasn't much, but it will list our payables. All right, then we could put a little instruction sheet, instruction here. This is not a Q&A thing, okay, but we could do, I almost feel like doing this, edit text, and I'm going to put 1. So our user knows that's step 1, list payables. And then we could put a little instruction box here that says indicate pay if they're to be paid and the amount if different. Okay, so it's an instruction box, and that's a pretty cool thing. Let's see if I can find that. Let's just put that one in there and see if that helps. Okay, and so write pay if to be paid, enter amount if different. Okay, I'll bring down my little box here so it can hold the whole thing. How about that? And that's not so bad. And those things can be formatted to make them look a little bit better. I don't know that I want to get too carried away here, but you can get the idea of fiddling with that box to get it to look really professional looking. All right, and then we have a third box, a third list that would be to import, to run the import. Okay, and so we'll go back over to Q&A, utilities, and that will be to run the import. Let's see, macro builder, and we want to do run a data send. Okay, and we want it to run from an internal definition file. And the reason we have 2 here is this is the one I practiced on before I started recording. This is the one I just made with you guys, and so I'll put that there. And I think we want to do something else. It might be valuable for us to recalculate the range, okay, first, before we do the data send. That is, remember our automatic calculations off in Q&A Excel, so they've put in the word pay here and the amount, and we want this column right here to recalculate, okay? So we'll go H13, I think I'm doing the right instruction here, H13 to H99999, okay. Oh, and the name of it is, and send, okay, import into Sun Systems. Okay, here we go. Okay. So I don't guess you can get too big of a label there. Let's see if we get import. Into. There you go. Helps if I were to spell it right. All right. Good. All right. So let's see. It looks to me that we ought to put a recalculate button that recalculates this prior to doing that. So I think I'm going to edit this import right here and take out the recalculate button. Okay, so we do import macro builder. Okay, and then we'll load that definition we just made. Okay, that was the macro 2. Okay, and we're going to remove the recalculate range. There we go. Because what I think I want to do is to make another one here. So we pull that into there. All right, and we're going to put another button here that says utilities, macro builder, and we have it recalculate range. Okay, and what we want it to recalculate is this value here, H, G, and H. Okay. G13 to H99999. I think that will take care of that entire, from this corner up here all the way to the bottom corner, all the way down there. And we go options, and this is the recalculate. Okay, so you can get the idea now. So we'll list the payables, do this bit right here. All right, and we could call this step 3. And this is step 2. Okay. I'm getting good at moving it now. I'm going to move it over there because I'm going to put in another little text box. And it goes to go. And I'm not going to bother lining all this stuff up, but this would be step 4. Record check number, date, trans, ref, and description. Alright, and when you make it, I want you to make yours much more beautiful than mine, but I think you are getting the idea. Alright. Alright, so I think we have this thing all done. You would make it beautiful. So the user comes in, lists the payables, and it does this deal here, and we want to pay this one, and we take that right there and we go copy, and we want to pay this one, paste, and we want to pay that one. And on this one right here, we only want to pay, well, let's do a few of them this way. So we want to pay 2,000 here of that amount, okay, and 1,000 of this one. Okay, so we've done step 2, we recalculate, and so it is now put the 2 where it needs them. Okay, the 2 where it needs it, and it puts the amount over there. And then we prepare the checks, and this is check number 24, check number 25, check number 26, and check number 27. And this all today. Now this could be just matched to this formula up here if you didn't want to type it all in, but I thought it might be fun to have different payment dates on some of the things. Okay. It wouldn't be that, it'd be something like 14. I'm not sure all that extra work is necessary. It might just be valuable just to make these things populate from whatever's there. Okay, transaction reference would be your invoice that you're paying, or the statement that you're paying. Okay, invoice, the supplier's invoice number, invoice, or statement, like that. I sometimes like to put statement and then put a date of when the statement was. So since a lot of times the supplier's statements are not numbered, you can just put in the date of the statement. And the description, and by the way, you can, if you just wanted to do payment on account, okay, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you could just leave that payment all the way down. It will not bother a thing in our process because it's only going to import wherever it has a 2. So we put in all of that type stuff, and before we do the import, we're ready to go. I would click this now, but I want to show you what's happened down here. And here, these amounts are corresponding, okay, with the amounts that we had up there showing. And don't worry that only the 2s, the ones that have 2s, matter. And so this is going to go in the description line of the bank account. Okay, so the description in the bank account will have the payee coming in automatically. Okay, you see, so this check right here, this 14,970, is basically going to be debiting this Home Depot account, and it will be labeled invoice 23 payment on account in that account. And then down in the bank account, it's going to say a credit of 14,970, and then it is going to put Home Depot in the description of the payment, the credit in the bank account. Okay, and so all that's automatic, and we go import into Sun Systems, and all that's in, and so there you go. So what the user does, okay, to show you, all that talking makes it look like it's complicated, but once you have it set up, the user comes in here and puts in the date, okay, the period, and the date. This would be September, let's say, when they're doing this. Okay, and they put that in. They list their payables. Okay, these come in as new amounts, and they put pay where they want them, and they put the amount they want to pay different. They put in the descriptions and so forth. Okay, let's put in one more. So we go here, Q&A, utilities, macro builder, and we want to clear a range. Okay, and the range that we want cleared is cell E. We want all of this cleared right here. E13, okay, through F 99999, okay. We want to clear that, and then we want to recalculate the worksheet, which will clear all of the mathematics off automatic. We also need to clear a range. Okay, to clear all of this stuff over here down to this right here, 73. Okay, and recalculate, and we want to clear I13 right here down to M, that's all the way over here, 73. All right. So the first one cleans this portion out over here, and then we recalculate the worksheet, which will take care of these here. Bring those, the ones that are formulas, to what they to a neutral value, and then we'll erase all of these descriptions for date and transaction reference. So I think we're good to go. The macro that we're building here is 6 we we go OK. It's down here. We'll bring this up right over here. All right, so let's see if this works. So we'll go clear. Hope I don't wreck anything. Maybe I'll save my work first. Now, whenever you're saving one of these things, we need to make sure that we save it as a macro-enabled workbook. Okay, so we save it and we clear. So we've got a new date. We list our payables, and the values may be the same. Then we come through here and we mark the ones. So let's run through the process. Once we got all this constructed, let's run through the process one time that the accountant will go through. They'll list the payables. I guess I should have said they'll modify the dates up here first. They'll list their payables. They'll come through, maybe even print it and take it to the boss, and the boss will put in what needs to be paid. Okay, and then if it's a different amount, we'll put in the different amount that needs to be paid. Recalculate, brings these things over, puts twos in the ones, the ledger import codes, and just match the ones where they're needed. Then we've done the recalculate, record the check, 34, 35, 36, and then the date. And these three columns here could be really automated if you want to use the same date, transaction reference, and description. You could just make them all with one place you enter it and they all appear here. But let's say we'll put in 09-23-2014, and you don't have to worry about this at all. That is, that you could just like that. Transaction reference is invoice 2342, statement for 1209. Okay, payment on account. And we've done that, recorded the check number, date, transaction reference. Those things, the 31st of September. Let's try again. Okay, 6 records went in, and then we're going to do another bank payment, and so we go clear, and we're ready to do another thing. Okay, and change the bank or change the date and do another payment run. So that's our little project for today, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This last little bit seemed like I'm stumbling around, but I think it may be valuable for you to see how I really work. Sort of stumbling around and fiddling around until I get it just like I want it. And definitely, if you make this, I want to see really beautiful matching buttons. None of this haphazard stuff you see here. I can't wait for the next video, and I'll do it. And definitely, if you make this, I want to see really beautiful